All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. As just introduced, my name is Chansuk Park, Associate Professor of Religious Studies at the College of Wooster. College of Wooster is a liberal arts college in the northeastern part of Ohio. Today, and I have my dear co-presenter, Dr. Jeremy Rapport. Yes. So today, my colleague, Jeremy, who is also an associate professor of religious studies at the College of Wooster, Jeremy and I are excited to present our newly implemented required course in the department named Religious Studies Connections. As the course title suggests, it focuses on exploring the multifaceted connections inherent in religious studies, spanning from community building to personal exploration and career preparation. Uh, we do not have fancy PowerPoint slides like Aaron's, but our presentation will be, structure of presentation will be pretty straightforward. So it is divided into three parts. So first, we're going to introduce the course and discuss the institutional and pedagogical circumstances that led us to design it in the first place. And then Jermaine and I will present the two versions of the course that we each taught at different times. While there was a significant overlap between these two versions, each of us emphasized slightly different aspects of connections. You will see that connection is a keyword in our presentation and in our course. Finally, we'll share some outcomes and lessons learned from offering this course as a key part of our departmental curriculum. Okay, so what is the Religious Studies Connections course? The idea of this course was first discussed as part of our departmental curriculum revision starting in 2018 and has been offered since the spring of 2021. It is a quarter credit course offered in the second half of each spring semester. It meets for 50 minutes once a week, and it is required for religious studies majors and strongly recommended for minors. However, it is open to any Wooster student regardless of their declared majors or minors. Typically, students have taken at least one religious studies course before enrolling in this connections course, often 100 level course, though some students have taken two or even more courses in the department by that time. Given the varied background of the students, our faculty designed this course to be broadly appealing, focusing less on specific religious studies content and more on how the theme of connections informs various aspects of our work. An important goal of the class is for students interested in religious studies to get connected with each other and form cohorts based on their shared interest in the study of religion. The timing of the inaugural course offering in spring 2021 was particularly significant as it aimed to mitigate the disconnection and social isolation experienced by students during the pandemic. This concern continues into the post-COVID years as we strive to provide a venue for students to build a sense of community based on their shared interest in religious studies. The course is graded on a pass-fail basis. In part, the course is intended as an introduction to the field, but one that prompts and encourages more holistic thinking among the students about their understanding of religious studies as both an academic discipline and a community, instead of a course solely focused on basic theory and methodology of the field. So our revised department curriculum already includes courses like Approaches to the Study of Religion and Junior Independent Study, both of which cover religious studies theories and methodologies in preparation for the senior independent study project. Jeremy?
Thanks, Chansok. So we initially targeted sophomores in this course for two main reasons. First, the college requires students to declare their major by the second semester of their sophomore year. And second, unlike, for example, in most of the STEM fields, students who declare a religious studies major often only do so after an initial sort of experience with courses in the field. Since our department does not have a single standard introductory course, students considering religious studies majors encounter a variety of 100 level courses on topics such as religious thought and action, religion, violence in the nation state, American religious communities, and Meet the Bible. In light of this variety, we strongly felt it was important for interested students to share a common class experience as they embarked on the major. Moreover, given that students and parents often view the humanities less favorably, especially in terms of job market preparation, we aim to achieve two key objectives. First, we wanted our students to recognize the specific skills that religious studies fosters. Second, we sought to create an inclusive environment where students felt welcomed and at home among their peers and faculty. Thus, the course intentionally emphasizes cultivating soft or transferable skills such as communication, teamwork, problem solving, and self directed learning as essential components of a liberal arts education. The pedagogical framework for the course blends practical experience and recent research suggesting that successful teaching practices depend on strong relationships between students and faculty. Since the course is central to our department's efforts to recruit students, it is regularly discussed in department faculty meetings, and many effective strategies have emerged from these discussions. So now let's turn to the structure and content of the actual courses that each of us has offered at different times over the past few years. My version of Religious Studies Connections divides the theme of connection into three major parts. The first is what we might call actual religious connections, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. The second is academic and personal connections, and the third is professional connections. Each part of the course has a specific rationale. Because students come into the class with a variety of experiences with the academic study of religion, for the religious connections parts, I want students to think about unifying issues that inform the study of religion. Our classwork focuses on themes of identity, meaning making, and community, things that you might find in any sort of religious community. The second part of the connections theme focuses on academic and personal connections. Here, the goal is to help students think about both about how their work in religious studies is part of their larger academic plan, and to think about how their religious studies work might inform their own values. Third, we look specifically at professional connections. So I invite members of Worcester's career planning team to speak to the class about resources the college has available to all students, as well as having them do a homework activity based on the idea of a mentor map. And if you're not familiar with what a mentor map is, it's literally a list of people that can help you with various aspects of meeting your goals. The first three meetings of the class are focused on various aspects and discussions of religion as a practice of connection. The first meeting, the very first class meeting, is an open forum class centered on the question, what is your religious studies story so far? And I begin this class by introducing myself and telling about my path to the academic study of religion as my profession. Next, I ask the students to share how they got to the religious studies connections class. So it's basically just a kind of a fancy get to know you class that puts into their minds immediately the idea that we're working on how they are connected to the field through their own interests and aspirations. The second class meeting examines the theme of religious community. Here I have students prepare a short homework assignment in which they find a popular media source that is about the concept of religious community in any way that idea might be understood. So there's no parameters to this. There's no formal theory informing it. And then write a short description of that source and its idea of community. That assignment is then shared with all the other students in the class via a shared Microsoft Teams notebook page, and students read all the other assignments in preparation for the class meeting. We begin with small group work to identify some of the themes of religious community in the student examples, and then this usually results in a broader discussion of what community is and why it matters to the study of religion. In my third class, students are asked to write another short homework assignment describing a meaningful personal experience, again, in any way they might conceive of that. There's no sort of preconceived framework here, and include 2 characteristics that help to make it meaningful. As with the previous assignment, students share the assignment with each other, and the class begins with a small group discussion of characteristics of meaningful experience that then turns into a class discussion of how we characterize meaningful experience. So the class sort of proceeds along these lines, right? So the next class is about personal connections, in which I ask them to basically sum up the first 3 classes. They write a short assignment about how our assignments and discussions so far have affected them personally and how they're now thinking about religious studies. The professional connections class starts with a mentor map assignment. So they're supposed to develop a short list of people that they consider mentors for various areas of their work. And I give them a short reading on who counts as a mentor in what way. And there's a list of all these various possible mentors. And then I also usually have a presentation by someone in our career planning office. And that's basically just getting them familiar with the resources that the college has available to help them with career planning. And then the last class is what we call a roundtable class. So we invite actually all of our juniors and seniors into the class to talk about their senior IS projects. For those of you that aren't familiar, the College of Wooster requires a senior independent study project. It's a thesis project that for all students. And so we invite in our seniors and our juniors who are doing the junior independent study class to develop their projects. And they talk about those projects and how they got there. And basically, we throw them a party. That's my version of the class. So now I'll turn it back over to Chansak, who'll tell you about his version.
Thank you. So in my iteration of the connections course, the theme of academic and personal connections, which is the second part of Jeremy's framework, was highlighted, and it was explored through an engaging activity that involved creating students' dream religious studies courses. And this activity comprises multiple stages. So the first stage requires students to bring an item they would like to study within the context of a religious studies class. Examples can come from a wide range of sources, such as news reports, social or cultural phenomena featured in social media, pop culture objects, so songs, films, TV shows, and advertisement, etc., books like fiction or nonfiction, articles that may not overtly address religion or religious topics, or everyday object, in fact, such as food, incense, stones, musical instruments, to name a few. So students are encouraged to select an item that, in their judgment, is not typically considered a subject of religious studies. So in class, students introduce their items and explain why they think these examples would be interesting and worthwhile to study in the context of a religious studies classroom. The next stage involves dividing the class into small groups of 3 or 4 members. That each group is tasked with creating 3-week long mini course syllabus using the items presented in the first stage, which I just described. So creativity is particularly emphasized during this stage as students explore multiple ways to connect their chosen items. Obviously, some connections may be very straightforward, but others may not be immediately obvious. Additionally, they need to compile a list of questions that will guide each session of the course. They may also include supplementary readings, which do not have to be textual, and any in-class or outdoor activities they think would enhance the learning experience of the course. This stage is intentionally designed to foster a sense of community and encourage students to enjoy conversing with their group members. The next stage is called the IES Scavenger Hunt. As Jeremy introduced earlier, IES, which stands for Independent Study, it refers to Worcester's Senior Capstone Thesis project, which is required for all seniors regardless of their majors. So students are invited to browse the online archive of past religious studies senior IS project and select two that they want to include in their mini course syllabus. Most students, in my experience, most students appreciated this exercise because they learned about the interdisciplinary nature of religious studies as an academic field, not simply through the textbooks and classics in the field, but through specific examples of religious studies IS project, which they will do within a few years. They saw a wide variety of possibilities to design their own future IS project in terms of both content and format by making connections among their diverse academic interests and transferable skills. In the final stage, students are invited to design one additional activity that would enrich their dream courses. The assumption is that they have unlimited resources for this activity, such as renting a private jet or conducting an exclusive interview with historical figures like Jesus, Buddha, or someone else, or celebrities, Beyonce or the LeBron James, for example. As students present their dream activities here, I also introduce cases in which religious students in the past have made these dreams a reality, at least partial reality, through various college resources, such as Worcester's study abroad program or the APEX Fellowship. The APEX Fellowship is Worcester's hallmark funding and mentoring program for students engaged in unpaid or underpaid summer internships or vocational exploration programs. So although not fully explored in my duration of the course, this conversation paves the way to move on to the professional connection, which was the third unit in Jeremy's framework. So let us conclude our presentation with a few remarks on some of the outcomes and lessons we have learned in offering this course in the past few years. Since its initial offering, the Connections course has had a positive impact on the Religious Studies department. The overall student participation in our curriculum and outside the classroom activities has definitely improved. The number of minors has significantly risen. Additionally, enrollment in key departmental courses such as approaches to the study of religion, as well as the Connections course itself, has steadily improved. Attendance at occasional departmental roundtables has also seen an uptick. While this positive trend may not be solely attributed to the introduction of the connections course, it has undoubtedly helped promote religious studies to a broader student body on campus. Determining whether the connections course has met its original objectives within the context of the current religious studies curriculum needs more careful analysis. As previously stated, in theory, the course is primarily aimed at sophomores who have not yet declared their majors or minors, but have taken more than one religious studies course. Ideally, upon completing the connections course, students would proceed to the next steps in the curriculum, the approaches to the study of religion course and junior independent study project in the following semesters, and also declare religious studies majors or minors eventually. So a thorough analysis of the role of the connections course within the overall religious studies curriculum will be essential for identifying areas for improvement in its current iteration. Jeremy?
Thank you, Chansak. While we have a limited formal assessment data pool, I do want to share some comments by students from course evaluations, and those do seem to indicate that the course overall has been a success. Students report that both class assignments and class discussions based on the assignments were effective, with one student writing, quote, "Our in-class discussions were the basis for the majority of my learning in this course. Hearing everyone in class contribute their perspective to the conversation made me reconsider my beliefs about community, career, the college experience, and religious studies as a whole. These discussions always left me with valuable questions to consider for myself about the topic at hand." Students also seem to feel that the course is effective, with comments including this course was extremely valuable to me both personally and academically, and was a significant factor in my decision to pursue a major in religious studies, as well as one student who wrote, "I love this course as I feel I grew immensely as a religious studies minor student." So one of the things that we think is important here actually is this low stakes nature of the connections course. It's a quarter credit course. So in Wooster's system, most courses are 1 credit, but we also have half credit and quarter credit classes. So this is a pretty low stakes course, and as we mentioned earlier, it's always graded pass fail. But as we've taught the course several times now and worked our way through it in a couple of different formats, it's clear that there's both advantages and disadvantages. On the positive side, its minimal credit load renders the course less burdensome for interested students, thereby enhancing its appeal and facilitating religious studies faculty members' efforts to promote enrollment. However, the course's limited structure, meeting for only 50 minutes once a week during half the semester, imposes constraints on its potential achievements, particularly in cultivating professional connections. This brief meeting schedule restricts the depth and breadth of interactions and networking opportunities that are essential for meeting professional development. And I'll just quickly run down one sort of failed example, I guess, here. So this last semester, we tried to incorporate a professional consulting project through the Ripen organization. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Ripen, but Ripen connects college classes with private businesses that essentially want interns, is how I would phrase it. And so I tried to do that in my last class, and for a variety of reasons, mostly because I didn't, frankly, I didn't do a good enough job laying out what the company could expect from my class. I would consider that not a positive experience, although I still like the idea a lot. But one of the issues was clearly this low stakes quarter credit nature of the class. The company wanted much more work than was reasonable to expect from students meeting once a week for half the semester. So yeah, that's our summary, and I know we probably went quite a bit over time. So thank you for our ability to dive into the details here, and yeah, we'd welcome any questions or comments.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy and Chansak. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, so I was listening to all the things Jeremy was doing with his students. And one thing I was thinking about, especially with like the mentoring maps, that's something that I did here when I started work at Kenyon. There was a kind of professional association that had like some kind of online presentation. And one thing I was thinking was I think a lot of the things that you're doing with students in these classes, honestly, would probably carry over into faculty professional development as well, especially at the early
Yeah.
stages.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but like I think especially with the mentoring, because I think especially like, I was a vagabond professor for 7 years, and I think that was one of the biggest problems I had was, I was just like a like a work for hire person in a lot of these places, and I never had connections to people, and I never got support getting jobs going forward. And I think a lot of people here would probably appreciate that if they had a structure for putting that together early on.
Yeah, that's a wonderful observation, and I hadn't, believe it or not, I've done a fair amount of mentoring with colleagues, and I'm ashamed to admit that it never occurred to me to use the mentor map with my colleagues. But yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I too shared a decent period of academic wandering before I settled in here at the College of Wooster, and yeah, the connections, knowing people, knowing who to talk to and who to consult with, it's that, yeah, that's a challenge early on for sure. So anyway, thanks for that idea. I'm definitely incorporate it.
Well, and of course, most of us, I think, who end up in higher education probably end up in a new geographic location. So thinking
Yes.
about community broadly, and like super broadly, it might be extremely useful. Um, Somebody on Twitter once who said they're covering all of these policies and forms in new faculty orientation, and all I want to know is where can I get a haircut and who's going to eat lunch with me. Um,
Yep. Yeah.
So, and this is for all three of you. It sounds like you've all got a lot of institutional momentum and support in your departments or colleges for making this work happen. And I'm wondering if you've had experiences talking to people who are just sticking their toes in or just thinking about the idea of a closer relationship to building professional school skills in the context of disciplinary courses. Or if you'd like to speculate on what you on what you might say.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I mean, the first thing I thought of was, um, I, I mean, I would imagine we all know people like this, right? Who think, well, I have a PhD in X field. I do X field. It's not my responsibility to talk to them about their careers or to help them become more connected on campus. Um, and on the one hand, I kind of get that. I mean, certainly, I mean, I've always felt a little differently about it, but I get it. I guess I get why people would think that. But I think now, especially, with the sort of the precarious nature of higher education in general and liberal arts schools in particular, um, you just can't do that anymore, at least in my judgment, right? Our students and our students' parents who pay their bills are, or at least many of them, a lot of our students pay their own bills more and more these days. But um, they want to be here, they want the experiences we can provide them, but they also want to know that it's going to end up okay. And so, again, in my judgment, I think if we're not paying attention to that aspect of it, we're probably not doing what needs to be done right now.
Our university has we call it the Professional Readiness Experience, or PRE, which is a graduation requirement that they have some type of professional experience prior to graduating. And each program sort of determines what that is. So it might be an internship for some. It might be a specific class that has these types of things integrated. So that has helped to kind of set the stage or lay a foundation, so to speak. For me particularly, there wasn't a lot of institutional support, but there is now that they see it works. So it's a field of dreams mentality of you build it, they will come. So now that I can showcase that this type of integration is helpful, it's allowing for other programs to kind of mimic that. And every discipline's going to be a little bit different in how they do it, but it's giving us that same type of opportunity. And just as Jeremy said, I mean, the reality for a private liberal arts institution is that we have to start to make some shifts, or we're going to not be able to showcase these are some things that are unique about us, because I think we all know about, you know, this demographic cliff of there being a lot less students that we're all kind of working with. What can we as institutions do to set ourselves apart? This is one of those areas that I think just saying, let's help to show you why this investment is worth your time can be really beneficial.
At least in my experience on my campus, depending on which field you're in, my colleagues may sense the kind of different temperature on the kind of urgency of this type of work incorporated into their expertise in X or Y or Z. So in the past year, College of Wooster launched the new career planning initiative called the Career Champions. In fact, Jeremy is much more actively involved in that initiatives. And they hosted the kind of series of events and formal, informal gatherings throughout the academic year. And among our, at least among our humanities colleagues, Jeremy and I and some of other colleagues in my department. So religious studies was one of the most actively involved in this new initiatives. I mean, in terms of the size, we are not the biggest department, not the smallest department, but somehow, presumably in part of the interdisciplinary nature of the field itself, we have been, Jeremy and I and our colleagues in the department have been more actively involved in this than other colleagues in humanities, at least. So I sense some departmental or disciplinary differences in terms of how much you want to accept this trend and then incorporate into the existing curriculum.
I will say, I think this becomes more of a challenge for liberal arts areas. For instance, nursing, you know by the namesake of the major what you're going to be going into. I'm a part of our College of Arts and Sciences where most of our liberal arts are held, and I feel like there is more of a challenge in that, but also an opportunity. So this is one of these areas where we can kind of help to reinvent some things, or to showcase in different ways what possibilities are out there for our students.